there, my name is Stacy from Stacy Eklund Designs, and today I'm doing a review on the Janome Skyline S7. Now the reason I wanted to do this review is because I've been using this machine extensively for the last 5 years, and I thought I could offer some insight on what is so fantastic about it, a few of its quirks, and maybe a couple of things that I would change. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a good idea of whether or not this machine is going to be a good fit for you. I don't work for Janome. I don't sell sewing machines, so I don't have anything to gain by trying to sell you something. When I was looking to replace my sewing machine, I was working on a 30-year-old mechanical machine. I was looking for some computerized features that would make my sewing more efficient, but I also, most importantly, wanted a beautiful stitch. It had to have an excellent fabric feeding system. I made custom skating dresses, which involve spandex and stretch mesh and lace and velvet, things like that. The fabric's sort of hard to work with, so a feeding system was super important. With that information, let's get started. All right, so let's talk about the stitching first. This machine has 250 stitch options. You can see, if you lift the lid, it's got a nice little chart up here that shows you everything that is available. You can access the little pictures of all of the stitches on the touch screen as well, and they're organized very well. Appreciate how organized the stitch categories are. The thing that I would recommend doing is creating a stitch library. I recommend this for any sewing machine, whether it has 7 stitch options or 250, because then you have something that you can choose from mid-project that is going to complement what you're doing. Okay, so I think it's important to include the things I don't love about a machine. I think the lettering is very mediocre. I don't use it very often. If the lettering was a little nicer, then maybe I would use it to make labels and things like that. But you can see here, it's not the most readable alphabet. The spacing is a little goofy, and I just have trouble getting really consistent results. Even when I'm using a top stitch needle, I'm using embroidery thread, and I'm stabilizing. So I'm doing all of the things that would make this, like the ideal combination of things to make beautiful stitching. The lettering, it's all right. It's not a make or break for me because I didn't buy this for its embroidery capabilities. It's not an embroidery machine. I do, however, love the decorative stitching. It is super consistent. I always get really nice results if I'm using the right needle, thread combination, and stabilizing when I need to stabilize. I mean, you can see they're so even, they're just really pretty, and it's like this all the time. It's always beautiful. I just don't have any problems with stitching. The last thing I want to mention about this is that the tensions, the auto tensions, work really, really well. I don't ever have to fiddle with tension. So you have a little icon here. When we click that, you can see the stitches are categorized. There are a lot of ways that you can manipulate these stitches. You have the ability to reflect them. We can elongate them. The other thing is that we can compose them. So there's a little icon here, and it's got a chain of 3 hearts, but then over here it's a chain with hearts that are kind of flipping in different directions. So when I press this, what it allows me to do is to combine stitches. So let's say like I want to use the heart and the bow together. I'll put heart and bow, and now I can sew that out, and it'll alternate heart, bow, heart, bow. Now to make that even more functional, I can save that. So if I want to use like the monogramming and combine it with a little heart, and then each time I sew something for my daughter, I want to stitch out her name with that little heart, then I can save that combination of stitches into the computer's memory. And then I just go back, pick that up, click on it, and then it will always stitch that out. So I think that's pretty fantastic. And you can save your stitch settings. Put in my settings, and then you see there's this little arrow. You can pop up this window to show you more information. I can hit favorite stitch, and when I hit favorite stitch, then it will save that into the memory. And now every time I come back to the machine, every time I click that particular stitch, it has my settings. They're highlighted to show that I'm not using the default machine settings, I'm using my own. If I ever want to return to default, there is a button right here that says default. I can press that and it goes back to the default settings. That is so useful. And anyway, that's the fantastic sort of computer component of this, is that you have all of this capability. So the other thing, besides its beautiful stitching, that I think makes this a superior sewing machine is the feed system. Janome on the Skyline S7 uses what they call their Superior Feed Plus system. And what it means is that you have 7 sets of teeth or feed dogs to move your fabric. But rather than coming up and having just a short contact with your fabric, if it's moving in a more circular fashion, this moves in a way similar to a box feed system would. So your teeth are coming up, if this is your fabric and this is your teeth, they're coming up and they have longer contact with your fabric to move it back in a more even way. So that combined with the AccuFeed Flex Feet, this is an AccuFeed Flex Foot, makes for fantastic fabric feeding. And what I want to do is turn this over, and what you can see from underneath of here is it adds a set of feed dogs to the top of the fabric. All right, so here's a little quirk, or not necessarily a quirk, but something that some people get frustrated by. This hook that is on this foot, it has to be clicked into the back of the machine. So when you first install it, if you don't push and click that hook back in, these feet are actually going to sit at this kind of awkward way, and they're going to prevent your fabric from going through. So if you put on your AccuFeed Flex Foot and you start sewing and you're like, oh, it's not working, it won't feed my fabric, chances are you don't have that hook clicked back in here. So it's just a quirk. It's something that I've seen other people have trouble online with. No big deal. You just make sure that it's engaged. Once it's engaged, these teeth are going to feed your fabric from the top, while the feed dogs that are built in the machine are going to feed your fabric from the bottom. The advantage to this is when you're working with a needing that's really slippery or really thick, you're going to get really beautiful, even feed. And that means that your stitches are going to be beautiful and even. So if you sew with a lot of knit fabrics, a lot of very slinky fabrics where you're getting puckering seams, this alleviates all of that. And I know that, all right, so the other thing is Janome works best when you use a Janome brand needle. It just does. You can use Schmetz or some of the other brands out there in a pinch, but I would recommend using Janome needles. So I have a purple tip needle here. I'm going to install that, and I'm going to show you how beautifully this seams on spandex. All right, so I've installed my fresh needle. That's going to let me also show you how this great needle threader works. I'm going to first push the needle down and up. When you do that, it's in the optimal position for using the needle threader, and then it just goes through. There's a little bar guide here, and then I put my thread through this little slot, and then there's a lever. I'm going to push that down, and whoop, there it goes. Now my needle's threaded. Okay, so I have the Janome purple tip needle, which is what is recommended for knit fabrics. I think it's a size 14 ballpoint needle. And you can see I've got this really slinky spandex. It would be hard to sew on many machines. And I'm going to just pull it over here, and I want to show you how beautiful this seam ends up being once you add that set of feed dogs from the top. Okay, and I'm gonna go, if I go slowly, I want you to see, like, see these little feet right here? That's what's feeding the fabric from the top. Okay, there we go. There, it's not puckering. There's no wonkiness to it. Look at how beautifully flat that lays. This is what truly sold me on this sewing machine. Okay, so for this last part of the video, I'm just going to talk about some of my favorite computerized features that I think make sewing a little easier. Needle up, needle down. There are some options with this that I think are really nice. So in order to set whether or not when you stop stitching, your needle is going to be in the up position or the down position, you use this settings button, and then we click here, and then you can see right now it's set to have the needle stop in the up position. If we're doing something like applique, or we're turning a lot of corners, there's a really fantastic feature on this, and it's called the hover function. And so what happens when we engage that is, you see this little icon here with the presser foot and the needle? When we put that on and it's highlighted, now when I come to a stop, automatically the needle's going to go down and the presser foot is going to lift up so that I can turn corners or stitch around appliques. It's just really, really convenient. So when I come to this corner, I'm going to stop. There you go. We also have an ability to have memorized scissor function so that the end of stitching, and I think it's when you back stitch, then it will automatically cut the thread for you. I don't use that, and the reason is because what I don't like about it is the bottom thread ends up underneath of the needle plate, and then you either have to draw it back up again or you have to use a leader. I I tend to use this little hook. I find it more convenient, and I also think that when you use the thread cutter button, the tails are a little long, and I feel like I have to go back and snip them anyway. So to me, this is, it's okay. I don't tend to use it a lot. Oh, this is another really great thing. This sewing machine has a bunch of applications built in. Now, I do not think that I would use these sewing applications, but I use them all the time. And so on the touchscreen menu here, there's a little t-shirt. When you press the t-shirt, you'll come to these different sort of built-in settings. There are quite a few of these applications. Let's see, I'll go out like that. All right, from gathering, rolled hems, you can see. And if you want to do a concealed zipper, you press concealed zipper and it'll tell you what foot to put on and what part you're doing. It tells you what foot you need to use. This we need to use the invisible zipper foot. It shows you how to line it up, where the stitch is going to be, and it automatically sets the machine, like the stitch length and the tensions, all specific for that process. I think that's super great. I did not think I was going to use it. I think it's more convenient than pulling out a manual. I do a lot of free motion quilting, and so I always use the application for this because it sets up the tension. I never get any, and it'll say lower the feed jog, gives me a little picture of the foot that I need to use, so I can change that all out. When I do that, I never get any kind of tension issues. I never have eyelashing, none of those problems, and so I think this machine is super fantastic for that. We go to patchwork, okay? We can use this setting, and if we unhook the foot pedal and we use the start stop button, we can set the length that the sewing machine is going to sew for each piece, and then we don't even have to, I mean, it makes it so automated, right? So if you're doing a bunch of chain piecing with the same size squares, you just stitch the first one with the start and stop button, right? And then the next time when you hit start, it'll automatically stop it at the same length over and over and over again. So it just makes it quick and easy. And there are a lot of little things like that that you can do. There are some applications that I've never used because I just haven't had a need to, but I love that they're in here, and you'll be surprised at how convenient that is. Okay, so this is definitely a big I don't like this about this machine. It's not worth me not wanting to sew on it, and I did have a nice workaround, but it's definitely annoying. And that is that the bobbin winding on this just sort of sucks. It's got this weird thread path you take, and I think it's a design flaw that just doesn't give enough tension on the bobbin. So when I wind bobbins on this machine, I tend to get a lot of spongy bobbins. You have to like floss the thread into there, into these channels, and it's just very fiddly, and it's really easy to not have the thread be in just the right path. So what I have done is purchased a separate independent bobbin winder for about $50. It goes really fast. It winds a really nice tight bobbin so that I just don't have to mess with this. And I don't think it's designed very well. I thought this was going to be a fairly quick video, but this machine has so many features that are so fantastic that I have just a few more things I want to show you. Okay, so I'm pretty short, and something that I really appreciate is adjustability for when you're short. And so I just want to show you on the knee lift, it is adjustable. You can adjust the angle that it sort of comes down. The needle plate can be removed by the click of a button, so you don't have to pull out a screwdriver. Anyway, okay, so you see, that's all there is to it. You pop that button, the plate comes off. Now this sewing machine comes with both a zigzag plate, where we have this big wide 9mm wide slot so you can get all of your decorative stitching in, but it also has a straight stitch plate, which is fantastic for quilt piecing. When you put the straight stitch plate in, there is a sensor in here that lets the computer of the sewing machine know that you have the straight stitch plate, and then everything but the straight stitches will be grayed out so that you can't accidentally put on the zigzag and then pop the needle down through the metal and jam up and break things. So I appreciate that kind of, there we go. We just pop it back down. The other thing is this great big acrylic extension table. It comes with the machine, and it offers a really nice, offers a really nice stable surface. And then things are very easy to reach. So this little button here, this is for balancing your stitches. I've never had to touch it, but if your stitching is out of balance, sometimes you need to make an adjustment here. In 5 years, I have not had to make that adjustment, but it's nice to know it's there in case I do. And then this allows me to lower my feed dogs or pop them back up again. Super easy. So I appreciate how easy that is. I just feel like a lot of this machine is designed in a way that is really convenient. I feel like all of these little things make it much nicer to sit down and sew at. So I use a speed controller all the time if I'm free motion quilting and or if I'm teaching somebody how to sew. Then I like to choke that down, or even sometimes if I'm doing really detailed applique work and I don't want to accidentally go, you know, like sometimes you start to rush, and this keeps me from rushing. All right, so I think that brings me to the conclusion of this review. I hope it was really helpful and that you were able to learn some things about what makes this sewing machine such a great machine. So who do I think this sewing machine is right for? I think that this is a great sewing machine for somebody who sews a lot of different kinds of things. I make figure skating dresses, I make clothing for myself, I like to quilt, I make some bags and purses, I like to make pillow covers and table runners, things for my home, and I find this a very versatile sewing machine. If I was quilting predominantly, so I didn't make clothes for myself or wasn't doing those other things, this would probably not be the machine that I chose. If I were doing a lot of free motion quilting, then I would want a bigger arm space. Making bags, I'd probably want something that was heavy duty. It does get through a bag, and I've had success making tote bags and some purses and things like that. But if that was what I was sewing every day, then I think that I would probably be looking at something that was built for heavy duty stitching. This machine cannot sew leather, and so you might be a little bit limited in what you could do with it. If you sew a variety of things and you're looking for something that's super reliable and that is going to work very well for you, that's very user-friendly, that has beautiful stitch quality and a great fabric feeding system, I don't think you're going to beat this machine. This is really a super fantastic machine, and it offers a lot of value for its price point. Okay, I hope that was helpful. I know it was long. It was longer than I meant it to be. If it was helpful, please leave me a comment below. Let me know that you watched the video, that you found the information useful, and then also hit subscribe so that you can see my future videos. Thank you so much for watching.